Let me tell you something real quick. See, when somebody goes silent on you and then all of a sudden decides to pop back up, you got to stop and ask yourself one question. When someone goes silent on you, it's easy to get caught up in confusion. You start wondering what you did wrong, what you said, or what you could have done differently. You replay every moment in your head trying to solve a puzzle that was never yours to solve in the first place. But let's get something straight. Silence is not confusion. It is a decision, a deliberate action, and it speaks volumes. See, people don't just accidentally forget to communicate with you. They don't misplace your number or suddenly become too busy to acknowledge your existence. In this digital age where everyone is glued to their phones, where people respond to memes in seconds and double tap pictures at midnight, going silent is a choice. That means somewhere along the line, this person made a conscious decision to fall off the radar, to scowl, to stop texting, to stop showing up. That's silence. That's not them being overwhelmed. That's not them needing space. If they didn't communicate it, that's not confusion. That's them choosing not to prioritize you. And here's the truth that hurts when someone is silent. They're still speaking. They're just speaking through their absence. And that absence, it says more than any sweet words they could have texted you at 2 a.m. The problem is we take silence personally. We assume it's about us. We start questioning our own value. We start trying to be understanding, to be patient. We justify it by thinking maybe they're dealing with something heavy. Maybe they need time. But time doesn't stop anyone from being decent. If you matter to someone, they'll find a way to communicate even in chaos. They'll check in, even in storms. Because silence doesn't just leave you without answers. It leaves you with a weight, a heaviness that you carry alone while they go about their life like you never existed. And the minute they pop back up, the confusion multiplies. Now you're torn. One part of you is relieved. Another part is angry. And a small, quiet voice in the back of your mind is asking the question you should have been asking from the beginning, why now? Because people don't go silent for no reason. And they don't come back unless there's something they want. Maybe it's attention. Maybe it's comfort. Maybe it's control. But whatever the reason, it doesn't change the fact that silence was a decision and it was made without considering how it would affect you. That's the part that cuts the deepest. Not the silence itself, but what it represents. It represents being deprioritized, being put on the back burner, being treated like an option. And when someone can go silent and come back like nothing happened, that shows how little they respected your presence in the first place. Because someone who values you doesn't let you sit in uncertainty. Someone who values you doesn't just disappear. Now, don't confuse silence with reflection. There's a difference between stepping back to gather your thoughts and walking away without a word. One shows maturity, the other shows disregard. And in relationships, any kind of relationship, communication is key. If they can't give you that, what do you really have? The hardest part is accepting the truth you already know, that the silence wasn't an accident, that the ghosting wasn't a misunderstanding, that the disappearance wasn't just a temporary glitch. It was a message. It was their way of saying, you're not a priority right now, without having to say it out loud. And when you accept that silence is a decision, you stop chasing explanations. You stop chasing people who don't see your value. You stop waiting for closure from someone who had every chance to give it to you and chose not to. Silence is powerful, not because it's peaceful, but because of what it reveals. It reveals character. It reveals commitment. It reveals how someone handles distance, discomfort, and difficult conversations. If someone can go silent during the hard times, they're not built for the real stuff. They're not built for storms, for miscommunication, for growth. Because growth takes words. Growth takes work. Growth takes the willingness to show up even when it's awkward, even when it's painful, even when it's complicated. And when someone decides to go silent, they're also deciding that the work isn't worth it, that your connection isn't worth fighting for, that your feelings aren't worth considering. And once that decision is made, it tells you everything you need to know. You are not a backup plan. That's something you need to plant deep in your spirit, because too many people walk around settling for being someone's maybe, someone's, if this doesn't work out, someone's safety net. And you were never built for that role. You weren't made to be an option. You were made to be a priority. But if you don't believe that, people will treat you however they please. Because let me tell you something, people will only treat you the way you allow them to. Being treated like a backup plan doesn't always look obvious. It's not always someone telling you directly, I'm keeping you in case things don't work out elsewhere. No, it's subtle. It's the inconsistent messages. It's the long silences followed by sweet words when they need something. It's the sudden attention when their other plans fall through. It's the calls that only come at night. It's the emotional roller coaster that keeps you hanging on just enough to hope, but never enough to feel secure. That's not love, that's manipulation. That's someone keeping you in their life for convenience. You see, when someone sees you as a backup, it's because they think you'll wait. They think they can go live their life, entertain whoever they want. And when they're done playing games or when life knocks them down, you'll be right there, arms open, heart wide. And if you don't know your worth, that's exactly what you'll do. You'll keep accepting their breadcrumbs, mistaking it for a meal. You'll keep hoping they'll wake up one day and finally realize what they had in you. But the truth is, people only realize what they had when it's gone and stays gone. Being someone's backup is draining. It steals your joy. It eats away at your confidence. It makes you second guess yourself. You start wondering if you're not good enough, not attractive enough, not interesting enough. But it's not you. It's the role they've cast you in. And when you accept that role, even quietly, even reluctantly, you send a message that says, you can treat me like I'm less, and I'll still be here. That's not love. That's not partnership. That's a power imbalance disguised as romance. Real love doesn't put you on hold. Real love doesn't make you feel like you're waiting for your turn. Real love doesn't require you to compete with ghosts, with exes, with people who don't even matter. Real love shows up. It chooses you loudly, clearly, consistently. You deserve to be with someone who knows your worth without needing to lose you to figure it out. You deserve someone who sees you as the destination, not the layover. And let's talk about loyalty for a second, because some of y'all are loyal to people who wouldn't flinch if you walked away. You're staying in places where your heart is breaking, where your value is being diminished, all in the name of love. That's not loyalty, that's self-abandonment. That's sacrificing your peace so someone else can stay comfortable. But comfort isn't commitment. Just because someone keeps coming back doesn't mean they're choosing you. Sometimes they're just choosing access. You need to stop being someone's, just in case. Stop holding on to potential that never turns into action. Stop hoping that time will turn confusion into clarity. If someone can't see your value now, don't give them a front row seat to your glow up later. Because when you know your worth, you don't chase, you attract. You don't beg, you choose. And you certainly don't wait in the background while someone else explores their options. You are the table, not the seat at it, not the dish being served. You bring value, you bring peace, you bring energy that can't be duplicated. But you'll never experience that truth if you keep settling for being someone's second choice. You're not a placeholder. You're not a time filler. You are not someone's emotional security blanket for the nights when they feel lonely or lost. And the moment you stop acting like you are, everything begins to shift, or people will test your boundaries. They will push to see how much of yourself you're willing to give without asking for anything in return. And if you let them, they'll keep you in limbo forever. They'll keep stringing you along with just enough effort to keep you hoping, but never enough to give you peace. That's why you have to decide. Decide that you're done being on someone's waiting list. Decide that your heart is not a revolving door. Decide that you won't water relationships that don't pour back into you. Because when someone sees you as a backup, that's a reflection of how they value, not how valuable you truly are. Respond with clarity, not anger. That's the part most people struggle with, especially when emotions are running high and you feel disrespected, discarded, or misunderstood. When someone goes silent on you and then reappears like nothing happened, the natural instinct is to get mad. You want to yell, lash out, let them know how deeply they hurt you. You want to remind them of the nights you waited, the texts you reread, the energy you gave that went unanswered. That fire inside you is justified because silence can feel like betrayal. But here's the thing. Anger might be loud, but clarity is powerful. Anger tells them they still have control over your emotions. Clarity shows them that you've taken your power back. When you respond with clarity, you don't need to prove anything. You don't need to perform. You don't need to raise your voice or rehash old wounds hoping they'll finally understand. Clarity means you've already understood something they haven't. You understood the value of your time, your peace, your energy. And when someone reappears after ignoring your presence, you're not obligated to explain how their silence affected you. You don't need to teach them what they already knew when they chose to be absent. When you respond with anger, you invite chaos. You start arguing over what they meant, what they disappeared, what their silence was supposed to represent. You get pulled into emotional gymnastics. And at the end of it, you're still empty because nothing they say can undo the pain that their absence caused. And half the time, people who disappear and return don't come back with clarity. They come back with excuses. They come back with charm. They come back with the same words that kept you stuck before. If you respond with emotion, you get drawn into a cycle that repeats. But when you respond with clarity, you stop the cycle cold. Clarity is calm. It's firm. It's grounded. It doesn't need revenge. It doesn't need validation. And it doesn't seek understanding from someone who already showed you where you stand. Clarity is knowing that someone's actions speak louder than any apology they offer. It's realizing that if someone could leave you in the dark once, they can do it again. And instead of trying to convince them of your worth, you choose to show it through how you carry yourself when they return. Responding with clarity is about self-respect. It's choosing your words carefully, not because you're trying to win an argument, but because you've outgrown the need to argue in the first place. You say what needs to be said and nothing more. You don't chase explanations. You don't pour energy into broken conversations. You let your silence say what your spirit already knows. I'm not where you left me. I'm not available for emotional inconsistency. I'm not waiting for someone who had to lose me to recognize what they had. And let's be real, responding with anger often leaves you feeling worse. You replay the conversation. You think about what you should have said or what you shouldn't have said. You stay tangled in emotion long after they've gone again. But clarity brings peace. Even if it hurts, even if it's hard, you know you handled yourself with grace. You stood in your truth without needing to break someone else down. That's growth. That's strength. People are used to reactions. They're used to drama. They expect shouting, crying, begging, door slamming. So when you respond with calm, measured clarity, it disarms them. It forces them to look in the mirror. It shifts the power back into your hands, not through control, but through confidence. You're not controlled by what they did. You're guided by who you are. There's nothing wrong with feeling hurt. There's nothing wrong with being disappointed. But you don't have to let that hurt turn into rage. You don't have to let disappointment poison your peace. Responding with clarity means you've processed the pain already. It means you've done the inner work. It means you're not waiting for closure. You are the closure. Clarity doesn't seek to punish. It doesn't carry resentment. It simply stands tall in the truth. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows what they bring to the table and isn't afraid to eat alone. Clarity sets boundaries without needing to build walls. It communicates without clinging. It respects the past without reopening it. And it walks away without leaving pieces of itself behind. When you master the art of responding with clarity, you become untouchable in a world that thrives on reaction. You don't lower your voice or raise your volume. You speak from a place of knowing that your worth was never tied to how someone treated you. And your peace was never meant to be shared with someone who couldn't protect it. You've grown beyond where they left you. That's the part they don't expect. When someone walks away, disappears, or goes silent, they often assume that when they come back, they'll find you exactly where they left you. Same heart, same energy, same availability. But life doesn't stand still just because someone paused their involvement. Growth doesn't wait for people to catch up. While they were gone, while they were figuring themselves out or chasing distractions, you were evolving. You were healing. You were becoming someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who learned how to stand tall in the absence of answers. It's not just about emotional growth. It's about how you began to see things clearer, how the silence made space for you to reflect, not just on them, but on yourself. You realized that what you were calling love might have been attachment, that what you were calling effort might have been hope dressed up as patience. You realized you were giving parts of yourself to someone who didn't even know how to hold space for your truth. And in that realization, something shifted. You stopped waiting. You stopped hoping for an apology that might never come. You stopped trying to explain yourself to someone who never really listened in the first place. Growth shows up quietly. It's in the way you stop answering texts just because they showed up again. It's in how you don't feel the need to prove your worth to someone who treated it like an option. It's in the way your voice no longer shakes when you speak your truth. It's in the way you no longer crave the cost you once mistook for passion. That's growth. That's the space between who you were when they left and who you are now. They may come back expecting familiarity. They might try the same old jokes, the same compliments, the same tactics. They might even talk like no time has passed, like nothing happened. But you've changed. You've outgrown those games. You no longer find comfort in confusion. You no longer ignore the red flags just to keep the story going. Your growth has redefined your standards, and what used to move you no longer touches you the same. There's a different kind of strength that comes from surviving heartbreak and silence, from picking yourself up without a crowd cheering you on, from rebuilding yourself worth piece by piece. They didn't see those nights you cried yourself to sleep. They weren't there when you had to talk yourself out of texting them, out of missing them, out of blaming yourself. But those moments built you. They stretched your spirit. They taught you the value of your presence. And now, you're no longer desperate for someone else to validate what you finally recognize in yourself. It's easy to fall into the trap of nostalgia when they return, to remember the good times, to recall the laughter, the comfort, the warmth. But growth reminds you that feelings don't equal foundation, that chemistry without consistency is just chaos in disguise. You may still care. You may still hold love. But growth means you're no longer willing to sacrifice your peace just to feel that love again. You're no longer choosing potential over reality. They might sense the difference in you. Maybe it's in your tone. Maybe it's in your boundaries. Maybe it's in your calm refusal to revisit what broke you. And that's okay. You're not here to explain your evolution. You're not obligated to shrink yourself back down to fit the version of you they once knew. You've grown, and growth means moving forward, even when others are still stuck in reverse. The brain has a funny way of editing pain when love is involved. It will reach back and grab the warmth, the excitement. It'll skip past the confusion, the neglect, the unanswered questions. But the message is still there. The truth of how they treated you, how they left you wondering, how they vanished without explanation. None of that disappears just because the memories are soft. A beautiful moment doesn't cancel out a pattern of inconsistency. A kind word spoken months ago doesn't erase weeks of silence. The memories are real, but so is the message. And the message matters more. You have to be strong enough to separate emotion from evidence. Just because someone made you feel good doesn't mean they were good for you. Just because you once shared a deep connection doesn't mean that connection was healthy. You can miss someone and still recognize that they mishandled you. You can feel the pull of history and still choose to protect your future. That's called maturity. That's called self-respect. You're allowed to honor the past without inviting it back into your present. The problem is, when they come back, they know exactly what strings to pull. They'll bring up the good memories too. They'll say things like, "Remember when we used Tall?" Or, "I was just thinking about the time when," and suddenly your heart softens. You start thinking maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe you overacted. Maybe they were going through something. But that's when you need to pause and ask yourself, are you remembering the love, or are you forgetting the lesson? The message was in their silence. The message was in how they chose not to show up. The message was in how they made you feel like you were always reaching, always guessing, always doubting. The message was clear, even if it was unspoken. And if you ignore that message just because the memories feel good, you're setting yourself up for the same cycle. History has a way of repeating itself when we only remember the highlights. There's nothing wrong with reminiscing. It's human. But reminiscing becomes dangerous when it blinds you, when it makes you minimize your pain, when it makes you excuse behavior that you know deep down was disrespectful. You can hold a memory in your heart without reopening a door that God already closed. You can appreciate what it taught you without pretending it didn't hurt you. The truth is, people don't forget how they treated you. They don't forget the silence. They don't forget the way they distanced themselves. They just hope you did. They hope time has softened you. They hope the memories have faded the facts. But that's where your clarity has to kick in. That's where your growth shows up. Not in how quickly you remember the good, but in how firmly you stand in what you learn. You learn what inconsistency feels like. You learn what emotional confusion does to your spirit. You learn that love without effort is just a performance. You learn that someone being present in your memories doesn't mean they deserve space in your future. That message was written in every ignored message, every delayed response, every time they left you on red and came back like nothing happened. The message was in the disconnect. And just because they've resurfaced doesn't mean they've changed. It just means they remembered how you made them feel. And now they want access to that again. You learn what inconsistency feels like. You learn what emotional confusion does to your spirit. You learn that love without effort is just a performance. You learn that someone being present in your memories doesn't mean they deserve space in your future. That message was written in every ignored message, every delayed response, every time they left you on red and came back like nothing happened. The message was in the disconnect. And just because they've resurfaced doesn't mean they've changed. It just means they remembered how you made them feel, and now they want access to that again. But access isn't free. Your energy is not a revolving door, or your heart is not a hotel room that anyone can check in and out of when it suits them. You've got to protect what you've healed. You've got to honor the lessons you cried your way through. You didn't come this far to forget everything just because they finally decided to reach out. You're allowed to remember, but don't let memory talk you out of wisdom. Don't let feelings trick you into repeating a chapter you already closed. Protect your peace before you protect their comfort. That's a hard lesson, especially for people with big hearts. The kind of heart that wants to keep things calm, keep the peace, avoid conflict. The kind of heart that makes excuses for other people's actions just to keep the atmosphere light. But there comes a time when you realize that keeping others comfortable while you sit in discomfort is not love, it's self-neglect. And when someone disappears from your life and comes back expecting the same version of you, the first thing you have to do is ask yourself, am I protecting my peace or just trying not to upset them? See, people who go silent without explanation, who leave you hanging in uncertainty, they're counting on you to be too polite to call it what it was. They're hoping you'll welcome them back with grace. Skip the accountability part and make it easy for them to slide back into your life without earning that space again. And if you're not careful, you'll do exactly that. Not because you're weak, but because you don't want to seem angry, bitter, or hard to talk to. But let's be clear, setting boundaries is not bitterness. Protecting your peace is not being difficult. It's being clear about what you will not accept moving forward. When someone reappears after silence, the most important thing to do is check in with yourself. How did their absence affect you? What did their silence teach you? What did you learn about how much you gave, how much you hoped, how much you tolerated without reciprocity? And then ask yourself, am I willing to go through that again just to keep them comfortable? Because if you let someone back into your life simply because you don't want to make things awkward, you're putting their emotional ease above your own well-being. Your peace is your responsibility. It's not to other people to guard it for you. It's not up to them to respect it unless you make it clear where the line is. That means you might have to say things that are uncomfortable. You might have to be direct. You might have to say, when you disappeared, it hurt me. And now that you're back, I need to understand what changed, not to create drama, but to protect your spirit from being dragged back into confusion. Because if they can't handle that level of honesty, they were never ready to have real space in your life in the first place. And don't get caught in the trap of guilt. That's another thing people with big hearts wrestle with. You start feeling bad for being distant, for not immediately responding, for taking time to process how you feel. But here's the truth. Someone who left without concern for your peace does not get to dictate how you preserve it now. You don't owe instant forgiveness. You don't owe a warm welcome. You don't owe access just because they've returned. Forgiveness and access are two different things. One is internal, the other is earned. Peace doesn't always look like calm conversations and gentle closure. Sometimes peace is choosing not to reopen a wound that's finally starting to heal. Sometimes peace is blocking the number. Sometimes peace is saying, I've moved on and I wish you well, but I don't have the space to go backwards. That's not cold. That's clarity. And clarity is one of the most loving things you can give yourself. It says, I value my emotional health more than I value keeping someone else comfortable at my expense. It might feel lonely at first. Protecting your peace can feel like isolation, especially when you're used to being the one who bends, who listens, who gives second and third chances. But over time, you'll feel something shift. You'll feel lighter. You'll stop walking on eggshells. You'll sleep better. You'll stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You'll stop doubting whether you're too much, because peace has a way of confirming what pain tried to make you forget. You are enough, just as you are, and you don't have to compromise your well-being to be loved. When someone comes back after silence, it's not just about what they say. It's about how their presence affects your spirit. Do you feel anxious again? Do you start second-guessing yourself? Do you shrink? If the answer is yes, that's your cue. That's your sign that this person's comfort is costing you too much. You don't have to make room for energy that unsettles your soul just because it once felt familiar. Familiar doesn't always mean healthy. Sometimes it just means unhealed. Your time and energy are precious resources, maybe the most precious things you have. And how you choose to spend them says everything about what you value in life and in yourself. When someone disappears without explanation, then reaches out after silence, it's easy to feel tempted to give them another chance, to offer that time and energy again as if nothing happened. But the truth is, every moment you spend on someone who hasn't shown respect for your presence is a moment taken away from your own growth, your own peace, your own happiness. Time is not infinite. It's the one thing you can never get back. And when someone disappears, they take more than just physical space. They take emotional bandwidth. They take mental energy. They leave you with questions and doubts that drain your spirit. So when they come back, you have to ask yourself, am I willing to invest in this person again? Am I willing to give them a place in my life that might only end up causing more pain? Because your time and energy deserve better to be an afterthought in someone else's story. Protecting your time means setting boundaries that are non-negotiable. It means recognizing that just because someone says, I'm sorry, or I've changed, doesn't automatically earn them access to your world. People who disappear and return often expect forgiveness and reentry without accountability. But your time and energy are not rewards to be handed out casually. They are currency, and you get to decide who's worthy of spending it. You get to decide what kind of return you need to see before you invest again. Protecting your time means setting boundaries that are non-negotiable. It means recognizing that just because someone says, I'm sorry, or I've changed, doesn't automatically earn them access to your world. People who disappear and return often expect forgiveness and reentry without accountability. But your time and energy are not rewards to be handed out casually. They are currency, and you get to decide who is worthy of spending it. You get to decide what kind of return you need to see before you invest again. Energy is contagious. If you give your energy to someone who is inconsistent, who is unreliable, who shows up only when it's convenient, you're teaching yourself that you're okay with instability. You're training your spirit to tolerate unpredictability and emotional whiplash. But your energy deserves consistency, respect, and care. You deserve relationships that add to your life, not drain it. And when someone reaches out after silence, you have to be honest about whether they will bring peace or chaos into your world. Sometimes protecting your time means saying no to nostalgia. It means not falling for the person they used to be or the person you wished they were. It means staying rooted in the reality of how they treated you, not the fantasy of how they might change. Protecting your time means you don't have to waste it on endless explanations, apologies that feel empty, or promises that are broken the minute they're made. Your time is too valuable for cycles that lead you nowhere. Energy isn't just about what you give to others. It's also about what you invest in yourself. When you guard your time, you're making space to grow, to heal, to build a life that's not dependent on someone else's presence or approval. You're choosing to focus on your goals, your peace, your happiness. And that's the kind of energy that attracts the right people into your life. The ones who show up consistently, who respect your boundaries, who honor your time. When you respond to someone after silence, remember that every minute spent in conversation, every ounce of emotional energy given is a decision. It's a decision to either hold your ground or to bend. It's a decision to protect your future or to reopen old wounds. It's a decision that reflects how much you value yourself. And when you treat your time and energy as precious, you create a life that doesn't settle for less than you deserve. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your time or your feelings. Your heart is not a waiting room for people who left without notice. Your energy is not a resource to be drained by those who come and go. Protecting these gifts means choosing wisely, saying no when necessary, and remembering that the best relationships are those that respect the value of your time just as much as you do.